Hi, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Happy Monday to everyone. This is Will, aka the Dreamer. Welcome to my little corner in the world, Dreamland Studios. How's it going? And welcome to Artist Talk. Well, today, Dreamers, I have a very special, very important guest that I am honored and privileged to have on my show today. This is going to be great. This is going to be really, really good. A very fine gentleman and a very fine musician. So let's all together welcome Mr. Chris T from the tribute band No Excuses and Alice in Chains tribute band. This is going to be great, Dreamers. Say hi. How are you, Chris?
I'm good, man. How's it going, man? Thanks for having me on.
I'm good. I'm good.
Awesome.
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for being here, and thank you for coming to hang out. And I don't wanna. Spend too much time talking. Except before we get into this, I just want to say to everybody who's watching right now, and for everybody who is going to catch this on the replay, to please follow the links down in the description box below. Check out Chris's links. Check out No Excuses, the Alice in Chains tribute band that my guest is in. This is absolutely phenomenal. I promise you, Dreamers, you will love them. You will love them. You will want to support them and get behind them, because I know I am. I think No Excuses is one of the best Alice in Chains tribute bands that I have ever seen myself or heard, and I really like them.
Thank you for the kind words. Thank you.
So before before we before we get into the question segment of the show, there's a video that you gave me that I have here. Is it okay that I play that right now?
By all means, fire away.
Check this out, folks. Check it out, Dreamers. Check it out, world. This is No Excuses.
Oh,
That was really, really fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, we're lucky. We've got a good group of guys.
That is your tone. And so let's thank you for sending me that video, Chris.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
It makes me
Thanks for sharing it.
smile wide. Was that cool, dreamers, or what? That is great. That is great. That is great. That is great. So let's talk about a few things here. Chris, tell me all about your gear, the gear that you're using for live performance, like in that clip we just saw, and what's your go-to gear, Chris?
It'll probably surprise a lot of people. I'm one of those kind of techie kind of people, and I'm really kind of an early adopter of a lot of things. For the last number of years, I've been using modeling. On that video, actually, you see a couple of Marshalls there on either side of the stage, a couple stacks. But we were sharing the stage that night with a Motorhead tribute, who were also excellent. So that was actually the air gear behind us. I've been using the Headrush pedal board.
Oh,
And for the Alice in Chains, there's actually a Bogner model in there. There's the red channel for the heavier stuff, and then the green channel that I use for the cleaner stuff. There's also a blue one that I don't know if it comes up in any of my patches or not. Mix and match some of the cabinet impulses and stuff like that. And I just kind of found a tone that's pretty damn close. I've got a 112 full range flat response monitor that I use. It usually just points at me, which allows me to get the feedback and things like that when I want it, and allows me to hear myself clearly and all that kind of thing. But everything that comes through front of house is all direct from the pedal board. Guitars, I've surprised myself with how many guitars I actually bring out to an Alice in Chains gig. I've got, I'm one of those people, I never really spend more than I have to. Like, I don't have any of these, like, $5,000, vintage, kind of guitars. For the drop D stuff, like what you heard there, whammy bar things and whatnot, it's LTD, ESP's, LTD is to ESP what Epiphone is to Gibson.
yeah.
It's an MH400 with 24 frets, and it's a great guitar, active pickups, EMG 8185 active pickups. The Floyd Rose on it is a licensed Floyd Rose, but it's super tight. I love that guitar. It's my favorite one. For the rest of the Alice in Chains stuff, a lot of it, like, dirt and things like that, where it's not in drop D, no whammy bar. It's a Les Paul Custom, and it's an Epiphone. But I hot rodded it a bit. I put some Seymour Duncans in at the Zebra pickups. Just kind of gives it a bit more bite, which I like. I've got a Telecaster, aka Mccallister. But it's been a great guitar for me. I used to use it. I use it less now than I did because I picked up. It's another Epiphone. It's ES339, based on Gibson's ES355 guitars, semi-hollow body, and it works really well for stuff like Nutshell, Your Decision, things like that I used to use a Telecaster for, but that one really kind of steps into that role really nicer than the Telecaster. Use a Telecaster for why am I blanking now? And it's gone. But I use it for a couple of songs. I use the Telecaster actually a little bit more in my Bon Jovi tribute. I also played a Bon Jovi tribute called Only Jovi.
Oh, okay.
I use that for some of the kind of more ballady songs, Wanted Dead or Alive, and things like that. And then of course, the blue guitar, the MH400, for things like Living on a Prayer and things like that. So every guitar has its own sound and its own job to do. Picked up the other day, picked up a Rickenbacker that has no place in either of the bands that I'm in, but guitars are like paintbrushes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When you need that color, there's only one way to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And my tastes are really pretty diverse. So when that's the paintbrush I'm looking for, I got it. So it's kind of nice. And then a couple of and I got an old BC Rich that has a lot of sentimental value to me. Got it off a friend about 6 months or so before he passed away. And I bring that along as my string buster. I think it's got DiMarzios in it. They're passive. It's this shocking pink guitar that changes color under the lights. Depending on the
Oh,
light, it might look bright red. It might look purple. It's really pretty cool. It sounds great. It feels nice to play. It's one of the early 80s models, the NJ series. It's a nice guitar, so I bring that along as my string buster. And then, I've got an acoustic guitar as a Canadian company called Norman out of Quebec. Same factory. I think it's the same factory as Seagull and La Patrie
oh my.
as well. There's some great
Wow.
guitars out of Quebec. Lado guitars out of Quebec were fantastic guitars as well, electric guitars. But yeah, I use that for when we do some of the Alice in Chains unplugged stuff as well. And then got my classical guitar, my old standby that sadly doesn't see much of the light of day these days with all the other stuff I'm doing, but that's okay. One day.
It will. It's there.
But
Okay.
the story behind the classical guitar is I bought it off my instructor. He was doing a concert tour over in Europe, and this company Barnabé, they make guitars for people like Narciso Yepes and people like that, and they're one of those companies that, my understanding, anyways, at the time, that they don't just make like hundreds of guitars a year and send them out to all the Long and McQuades and guitar centers of the world. You go to them and you buy a guitar, and if they want to make you one, they will. And if they don't want to make you one, they'll say, thanks, we've got some other orders, maybe come back another day. So I'm really quite lucky to have a guitar made from the studio of Paulino Barnabé. So yeah,
Wow. That's beautiful.
yeah.
That's beautiful. So we have let's see, we have Dwight Bailey in the chat. Hey Dwight, how you doing?
How's it
This
going,
is
man?
this is Chris. Say hi to Chris, Dwight. Chris is awesome. The one of the things, what is the how does the you have an interest in the business side of music. Why
Mm-hmm.
didn't you pursue that?
That is a good question. Goes back, I guess. It's funny. I've throughout high school, I was mostly pretty certain I was going to go one way or the other. I was either going to go into engineering, 'cause I'm like a mathy, sciencey kind of guy, in either engineering or maybe accounting. And accounting may well have led me in towards some kind of a biz knob kind of career in music. And I did a co-op placement when I was in grade 12. And at this time, our school system in Ontario here went up to grade 13. I did a co-op placement with some teacher tapped me on the shoulder and said, I think this would be a good opportunity for you. And it was it was in a grade 1-2 classroom. And little kids to this day, kind of scare me. But I went, okay, so it's 2 credits, it's half a day, and I'll give it a try. So I spent a term from February until June in this grade 1-2 classroom, all the while still thinking that, I think I'm going to probably go into a career in engineering. And it was such a positive experience for me that at the end of grade 12, we weren't applying to universities yet because that was the end of grade 13. But by the end of grade 12, I made this decision, what? I think I want to go into teaching. So here I am. That's what I do, actually. That's my main income stream.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Dr. Brian May is an physicist.
Yeah. The guy from Weezer has got a PhD I think it's a PhD in English. Dexter from The Offspring has got a PhD in microbiology. He's done work on AIDS research and things like that. Tom Schultz from Boston was an engineer for Polaroid for some time.
That's right.
Yeah, there's, a few people that made the decision to kind of go academically, and then they got lucky and found themselves in a career of performing where they were able to make it work. But I kind of found teaching. Maybe in another life, I might have gone into entertainment law because I'm interested in that as well. And the music industry is a funny place.
It is. It is, no doubt. No doubt there, Chris. After 20 years of recording, how has that changed your mindset when you're recording? Oh, actually, I should say, after 20 years of recording, Chris, how has your mindset towards recording evolved?
I think like most people, when you get into recording, I've been recording for about 20 years thereabouts. I got into it really, really early, thinking, because I got this. When was it? Mid to late 80s, maybe 86, 87. My high school music teacher, who was a huge influence on me really throughout, even now in a lot of ways. He had this little Fostex thing he brought into the classroom, and I almost died. And I got to get myself one of those. So I had this Fostex 4-track, and I had this thing, I can record my own stuff at home, and this is going to be awesome. And then I went to fast forward a number of years, late 90s, I guess it was. Was at a music store, and I saw how far things had come, and was introduced to this Cubase program, and I thought, geez, if I just had that, I could I could have like a pro studio in my house, and I could make my own records. And like everybody who doesn't know anything about much, I got into this recording thing thinking that recording was about the gear. It was about having the software, and it was about having this and that and the other thing. And the big thing as I've kind of evolved is, you've got to have the gear to do it, but you also have the space to do it. The best $400 I ever spent on my studio space was an acoustic treatment. I've treated my control room here. I treated my live room, and that's made the biggest single difference in my recordings and in my mixes than any single piece of gear I've ever purchased. And also, performance is king. Really, you can have, $100,000 worth of gear and a second-rate performance, and you're going to turn out a great recording of a second-rate performance. Most people would rather hear an okay recording of a great performance because it's going to sound better.
Yeah.
So the gear's important, but there are other things that are so much more important.
Well, you have before I get to my next question, over here in our chat room, Patricia's asking, when are you going to play Segovia again, Chris?
I saw that come up on the screen. I have a very special relationship with this Patricia person, and she's familiar with my days of studying classical guitar. Full disclosure, Patricia's my mom. My mom.
Welcome to Artist Talk.
Yeah. And they were, I really have to say, they were hugely supportive of my growth as a musician over the years. From first learning guitar and all that kind of stuff. So she heard me practicing my classical. Like back when I was talking about how I decided to go into teaching. I thought, okay, so what do I want to teach? Well, music. That's kind of a logical thing. How do I get there? Well, you need a degree in music. Okay, well, here I am in grade 12. I played a little bit of classical guitar from a study book that I had worked on and whatnot. And I knew a ton of AC/DC licks. That was good. How do I get a degree in guitar? It's either classical or jazz.
Yeah.
Okay. So I talked to somebody and he kind of pointed me in a direction. He hooked me up with a guy that would be my instructor. And I went to him and I said, I want to get, I need to prepare for entrance to university. What do I need to do to get into a university program to get a degree in music? I wasn't surprised when I found out that AC/DC wasn't going to help me get there. So yeah, classical or jazz. Well, how good do I have to be? So, you should be playing, grade 8, grade 9, grade 10 pieces. I thought, well, I've done grade 12. No, that's not what they mean. Oh, okay. Well, what is that? Long story short, I was told that if I practiced probably minimum 2 hours a day, if not more, for another year or two, with the right instructor, I might be able to get there. So I hooked up with the person who was definitely the right instructor at the time. His name's Peter Mccallister. It's Dr. Peter Mccallister now. I think he's at Ball State in the States right now. But he was an instructor at University of Toronto and at McMaster as well. And I studied with him actually throughout my university, but to get in, it was really one of the biggest challenges of my life because I went from literally playing, he assessed me where I was at. He says, you're at about grade 2. Okay. And I'm kind of, thinking, well, I've been playing guitar for 6 years at this point. What do you mean in grade 2? And I need to get up to like grade 8, 9, 10. Okay. So that's a fairly steep hill to climb. So commit I did. I auditioned at the end of grade 13. I played 2 grade 8 pieces, a grade 9 piece, and a grade 10 piece, and didn't get in, but I got permission of the department to take courses that were designed for specifically for people in the music program. And I continued practicing 2.5 hours a day. And the next year I played 2 grade 10 pieces, a grade 9 piece, and a grade 8 piece. And I did get in. But man, I worked hard to climb that mountain. And that was it was a huge achievement to get there. Once I got in, it was kind of more the same on top of your regular academic studies. On top of, all your papers and stuff like that you're writing, you're still practicing 2.5 hours a day. To keep moving forward. So and I lived at home throughout university, so I played a lot of classical stuff at home. Unfortunately, since graduating, getting into teaching and things like that, there's a limited amount of time to play and learning songs for bands and things like that. Sadly, I don't really play classical guitar much these days. I'll get into it again, though, at some point.
Well, with over 35 years of playing under your belt, what would you do different? And if you had to go back again, what would you do differently?
As a guitar player, specifically, I think I would probably do things very much the same way. But one thing that I really, as a in my growth as a musician, that I would totally do different, is learn to sing at an earlier age. I was one of those people. I don't know what it was. Not that I have a bad ear; my ear's fine. But I had no control over my voice. I heard a recording of myself singing something, who knows what, in grade 7. And it wasn't that, you hear a recording of your voice, you go, that doesn't sound like me, it sounds weird. It was oh my God, like that person singing is me. And that person clearly has no concept at all of anything resembling pitch. It was like, happy birthday to you, it's like, it was, holy cow. That scared me off of singing for years and years and years. I wouldn't open my mouth to sing anything, at any time for anybody. And I didn't start to learn to sing, and the only reason I can sing anything at all, and I'm not like an awesome singer, but I can get by and I can sing stuff now. But I took lessons for 10 years off a guy named Edward Johnson, and he taught me vocal technique, and that's the only reason I can sing anything. And I learned that when I learned to sing, a few things happened. My ear became instantly better. My ear is so much better than it used to be. The other thing that happened is, as a musician, it made me a lot more marketable. When you can provide, backing vocals and even some lead vocals, I do lead vocals for the song "No Excuses" for the Alice in Chains tribute. It just works for my voice, kind of thing. Then you're so much more marketable as a musician, and your ear gets better, and you're so much more marketable as a musician because your ear is better. You can communicate your ideas to other people so much better. I really wish that I had taken the time and did whatever it was I needed to do to learn how to sing at a much younger age.
Well, you got one up on me. I really can't sing at all, and I see your point. I admire guys that can, and girls that can rub their head and pat their belly at the same time. I can't. Oh, I'm doing it now.
I was positive I couldn't sing either. It's why I didn't. Right? And as I say, if you learn how to produce your voice correctly, a lot of it comes down to repetition. But if you learn how to produce your voice correctly, I'm kind of evidence that if I can learn to sing and my voice was that bad, if I can learn, then anyone can learn.
There you go. You hear that, dreamers? Don't give up. If Chris could learn, anybody could learn.
That's it, eh?
That's beautiful. You know what? That is perfect. That is really, really perfect. Thank you for that, Chris.
Of course, yeah. Mm-hmm.
What are you doing musically now?
I've got the Alice in Chains tribute that I've been with for a couple of years.
Yes.
Well, actually, kind of the glib answer is nobody's doing anything now. But aside from that, I got the Alice in Chains tribute, and a couple of months or so ago, I hooked up recently with a Bon Jovi tribute as well. That's still in the getting off the ground stage, but really great group of guys, skilled musicians, and both bands I'm really lucky with because they're people that you like working with, which is super important. But everybody in both bands really has it within them to not only play the parts as they're recorded, as you hear them, right? As a tribute band, you've got to have the parts right. right? You
Right.
can't kind of go, well, that's pretty close. You've got to have the parts right.
Right.
So the guys in both bands, they've got it within them to play the parts right and to sound like the artists as well. Vocally, if you don't sound like the singer, or sound like the instruments of the band that you're trying to be a tribute to, then I think you're going to lose your audience pretty quick. So I'm lucky in both respects that these guys can, A, play the parts, and B, sound like the artists, that we're covering, that we're paying tribute to. I've been recording around a home studio. Just finished up mixing an album for a friend of mine. Just released it the other day, and so I've been able to do some work from home. But yeah, a lot of bands have come in. Not a lot of bands, but do demos, EPs, albums, things like that. I don't advertise because I'm really quite busy otherwise. So I'm as busy as I want to be, and that's kind of the perfect balance. And then teaching as well. It's a big commitment. A lot of people think you're working from 9 until 3. You got an hour off for lunch. You got a prep period, so you work about 15 minutes a day. And you got the summers off, and you got all this time, and who knows what you're going to do with it. But if you're not prepared to commit yourself to, in the beginning, probably a 60-hour work week. And I've been teaching for 20 years, a little over 20 years. And if you're not prepared to, even at that point, to be putting in probably 50 hours a week, I mean, when you first start teaching, it just gets ridiculous. But if you're not prepared for that time commitment, then don't consider teaching as a profession. You've got to be prepared to invest yourself in it. And so musically, that kind of covers really all the bases where I'm at. I don't do much music in my teaching, funny enough. I teach grade 5. I teach music to my grade 5s. But there's another guy at our school who's a gifted musician. He's great with the kids, and yeah, that's his gig, and I'm happy to let him do it. He does a great job with it, so it's all good.
That's great. That's great. So tell me, since you perform, and from the video that I played earlier at the start of this broadcast, you performed very well. Your tone is just spot on, and I it's really hard for me sometimes because I've heard a lot of um, different apps. I've played a few, owned a couple, and there was always this tone that I had in my head. And then I was introduced to modeling in line 6, and for some reason, nothing never really seemed, as great as all that stuff is, nothing didn't really seem to come close to um, mid mid-rangey Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I gotta tell you, your tone in the video clip I played is very close, very
Yeah.
close, very close to the sound of my head.
Thank.
It Head rush. I was gonna get one of those at one time before all this COVID-19 stuff happened, and because I saw Tracy Guns with one of LA
Right.
Guns,
Mm-hmm.
and when I saw his video for Head Rush, um, I started looking into it, and I was kind of unclear on a few things. Just after extensive research, I was unclear.
Hmm.
But then when I listened to you, when I heard you, and like I was telling you, I watched your tribute band, No Excuses, and before I went to bed last night, and then right as I was just getting ready to go to sleep, first I watched you guys, then I went over to Alice in Chains YouTube channel and pulled up a couple Alice in Chains performances, and the guitar tones are are identical. You
Thank you.
you really nailed Jerry Cantrell's guitar tone.
Thank you.
It's powerful and it's full. It's robust. It's um, it's got that mid push that Jerry was getting from the Bachner Ecstasy app,
Yep.
and it's pretty spot on, I must say.
Thank you.
It it just the hair stood up on my arm when I was listening to Lane Staley and watching the Unplugged performance, and then watching some live performances with William Duvall, who I love as a singer and as a frontman, and I totally support William Duvall and what he's doing because I think that what he's doing is very an incredibly hard thing to do, especially when you're stepping into the shoes
Exactly.
of
Yeah.
somebody like Lane Staley, who's this magical lyricist, this magical songwriter that it just could could just walk into the room, not say a word, and emit this power from him that's just makes your hair stand on end, you know. And William Duvall's pretty darn close to that, you
He
know.
is. Yeah. He's doing a great job of trying to fill in those shoes.
I really think so, and I totally support that. Have you seen the solo the solo releases from William Duvall, the solo videos?
Yeah, I have to confess that I haven't.
Check,
I'll have to check them out.
amazing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hmm.
he's oh I ever get a chance to meet him, I'll probably tell him. You know, I'm a big Lenny Kravitz, and there's just something that William is doing that's kind of putting him in that genre, in that world
I can
with
see that. Yeah.
Lenny Kravitz. It's powerful,
Hmm.
just powerful, and it's a true heart and a true spirit, and it's powerful. You know, and I support that. That's the kind of thing that I like. That's the kind of thing that inspires me. You know, and that's one of the reasons why I really like listening to the band that you're in, your Alice in Chains tribute band, No Excuses. Is that I felt that same power. I felt that same. There's just something there that was just drawing me in, and I wanted to be there. I wanted to be at the front of the stage. I wanted to be at your gigs. I wanted to be part of it because it just made sense to me.
Awesome. No, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Honestly, I wear my heart on my sleeve with this stuff, and I love you guys. You guys are great.
Hope
Um,
to be out gigging again soon, hopefully.
for sure, definitely. Um, Do you have any player highlights that you've had along your way, and are there from performing live with or recording in your home studio, and if so, what are those things that you're really proud of?
Hmm. Um, I like how you framed the question because there are some things that, I mean, uh, the home studio thing. I'm always proud of people who, finish their album here and then, release it to the world and get good reviews from it. That's a good feeling to be part of other people's success. Uh,
Absolutely.
which is nice, especially when, the reviews come back and people, compliment the album on how well it's recorded. I thought, it's good. I'm glad they said that. Um, as well, part of the reason I got this stuff is, for my own personal projects as well. And that kind of goes in two directions. I've got three kids, and they're all musical to varying degrees. And some of them pursue it more than others, and that's all fine. But we used to do like a Christmas compilation thing every Christmas, and when they were little, sing Christmas carols, and I play guitar and things like that. And, so some of those things are things I'm particularly proud of, just personal projects. I came across a recording of my grandfather on my mom's side. It's back in the 1940s. You could go over to Buffalo, and they have these booths where you could sing in a booth and record it, and you could bring it home. And they had these 78s, and long story short, I was able to take one of these 78s that wasn't really in great condition and resurrect it, and I put together like a backing track.
Wow.
And so it was me doing like kind of the backing track, and I flew in my grandfather's vocal on top of it. And it was a really neat project to kind of really hear that not so well preserved 78. I mean, not poorly preserved, certainly playable. But to hear that come to life, was really a special project for me. I've had my kids do a couple of songs, that I've recorded down here as well that have been special to me. Personally, there's really nothing quite like, hearing a song that you've written and recorded yourself, obviously with the help of other musicians. I didn't play all the instruments, but my original band, Now.Here.This, there's nothing quite like the feeling of hearing your song on commercial radio, for the first time. That's, I think that's kind of a highlight of anybody's kind of musical journey, if they're lucky enough to get there. So yeah, that's something, your first royalty check, such as it was. But yeah, a wide variety of things. Stuff that you do with the kids is, I find to be, especially gratifying, because most of us don't make music for professional purposes. Most of us make music because it's a quality of life thing. So whether it's, restoring your grandfather's old recording, my grandfather never pretended to be a professional musician. He was a good singer. But, that kind of thing, helping people with their quality of life, getting that musical angle on that is, definitely a big part of just being gratifying for that.
Well, over in the chat, we have Sean. Hey, Dwight Bailey, Patricia, Chris, Karen, and
What's going on, Sean?
Karen, that would be. Hi, Chris, enjoying the interview.
Thank you, Karen.
Welcome to Artist Talk, Karen. My name's Will. This is my show, Artist Talk. Welcome.
We got tickets for Rage Against the Machine for next summer.
That's cool. That's great. Rage. Oh man, that would be something to see. I'll tell you.
Never
I
seen
would.
them. I can't
Oh,
wait. And now I have to wait till next summer.
I've never seen Rage Against the Machine. I, God, I love Rage Against the Machine. Um, there. Oh, yes, yes. This is one of my favorite questions that I have. And what advice would you give someone who wanted to take guitar in school?
Um, the first thing I would ask them is, why do you want to take guitar in school? And that's not at all to undermine my experience as a person who pursued music academically. But in the end, it comes down to what do you want to do with it? Um, if you're looking at going into a college or university program to be a better player, you will be a better player. Um, but if you want to, when you look at be a better player in what regard, be a better player, with what ultimate end, that's where it really comes down to. Um, there are people out there who are incredible guitarists with
Mm-hmm.
no formal training.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine for what they're doing, you know. Thinking of someone like, Angus Young or Eddie Van Halen or whatever like that. I don't think any of them have any formal music training, um, but it certainly hasn't stopped them from being successful.
That's true.
um,
Very
so
true.
it comes down to what you want to get out of it. For me, I had made the decision that I wanted to go into teaching, and to get into teaching, you need a degree. Music to me seemed to be the best choice for a degree. A degree in engineering at that point to get me into teaching wouldn't really have helped me, that kind of thing. So it's a path to getting you to where you want to be. If I simply wanted to be, the best rock player out there, my background in classical guitar was not all that helpful. It gave me good hand position, it gave me good technique, it gave me good dexterity. That's all fine. But if I just wanted to become a great rock player, um, I could just as easily just have finished high school and not gone to college or university and just practiced at home for 4 years and achieved that goal. It wouldn't have cost me anything. Um, but the downside of that, though, is then what? Trying to make a career as a full-time musician is really, really hard. I know a few people that do it. That's their primary source of income, perhaps
Yeah,
even an only source of income.
it's possible.
It's possible, but I can't really say I envy them. You know, as far as stability, quality of life, that kind of thing. When your hours are basically working evenings and weekends, um, when you've got no job security, um, to speak of. Like, I'm lucky right now. I'm moving my teaching online. It's not the ideal, but at least I'm still doing it. I'm still getting paid for it, and that kind of thing. Um, but to be a full-time musician, everything that you do is like piecework. You get, $50 here, $100 here, maybe 200 there, and eventually you can stitch that together. But every little piece you've got to go hustle for,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not guaranteed to have that next week or the week after that. Um, it's a real challenging way to try to get by, try to support a family, that kind of thing. Um, Not that it'd be a terrible existence. I mean, I think it'd be really fun doing music all the time in a lot of ways. Um, Except you have to really be prepared to play, I think, a lot of stuff that you're not really a fan of, because there's another way of me making another couple $100 by me doing this. I don't really like it, but it'll make me that money. A bit of hustle here and a bit of hustle there. It's a tough way to go. My hat goes off to anyone that can make it work. Then there's also the other dynamic of, and this kind of gets into the business end of things. When you look at market size, the United States has 350 million people or so. That's a fairly large market. That's contained by a pretty well-determined border, both geographically, politically, and economically. The Canadian market's considerably smaller. There is a popular expression is, as a Canadian celebrity, you're too famous to ride the subway, but too broke to afford your own car. And there's a lot of truth to that. I know Canadian musicians who've would kind of pass that bar of celebrity. Maybe they've got a gold record on their wall or whatever like that. Who don't have that ongoing security of income, and even simply having the security of a job that's going to be there next week. You don't have a retirement fund. If you get injured, if you fall off a ladder or something like that, there's nothing there for you.
That's right.
So my hat goes off to anyone that can make it work.
Without a doubt. It's a hard thing, and especially now, even all the, folks that had job security and had a plan and everything, not really right now.
Especially now. There's not a musician out there that's really working on any meaningful level, I don't think. If you're lucky, you're Lady Gaga, and you just gotta double check your bank statement and make sure the royalty checks are still coming in. But for the 99.999% of the rest of the musicians out there, whether you're playing in, cover bands, tribute bands, whether you're teaching privately, whether you're doing studio session work, everything's dried up at the moment. If your tours are canceled, even if you're working support staff, you're working in, the music industry, like, merchandising, your security, technical things, staging, sound, lights, all that kind of stuff. Right now, you got nothing. It's like, I really feel for all those people out there who've just had the rug pulled out from underneath them.
Yeah. Well, what would be, since before we're talking about business, the business side of things, and that that type of thing, I just want to say real quick, um, that in the chat, Karen was nice enough to say, "Hi, Will, great show." Well, thank you, Karen. I appreciate that. I wear my heart on my sleeve with this stuff, and I started out with from the ground up, not knowing what I'm doing, and sometimes I still question, do I yet? And I've been doing this for a little bit. Thank you, Karen, for
We
your
all do
kind
that.
words.
Sometimes they do that in the classroom. What am I doing?
And Sean Zimmerman, hey, real star, Sean, welcome to the show, buddy. I'm glad you're here, brother. Thank you for being here. This is Chris. And Karen, can't wait for the show. Karen, you're awesome. You really, really are. Thank you so much for your kind words. And Karen saying hi to Sean. And Karen, such great points. Absolutely. 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 And hey, who's this guy Chris right here? I've seen that name before somewhere. The Why did you get a degree in classical guitar, Chris?
Um, so there were a couple of things. One was a lot of my favorite players at the time. Thinking of people like Rick Emmett from Triumph, who's a master, and Randy Rhoads from Ozzy's band. They talked a lot about how their background in classical guitar helped them to be better players. That was part of my interest. I had also kind of come to discover some other classical players who were just inspiring players. People like John Williams and Julian Bream, who are just kind of, world class, top of the world masters. But then other people like Leona Boyd is an interesting one. She's a Canadian classical guitarist, and she's an excellent guitarist. I don't think she's at the same level as a Julian Bream or a John Williams, but one thing she does better than anybody out there is, excuse me, she brings it to a wider audience. She markets herself, and I mean, I haven't seen her name in a while. She's this kind of goes back to a long time ago, but she markets herself more like a pop musician than a classical musician. And she doesn't play pop material. You're not gonna, go see Leona Boyd and have her pop out an arrangement of Hotel California or anything like that. But she plays some pieces that maybe won't be as artistically challenging to play, but ones that audiences love. They love to hear and that kind of stuff. She presents herself as being very accessible. And kind of brings it really to the common person in a way that, some of the older guard of classical guitar players never really did. So although she might not be playing at the same level as a John Williams or Julian Bream, she has probably inspired more guitarists. Just by way of her being more accessible, I think. So anyways, these players all kind of showed up on the radar. And then when I made the decision to to go into teaching and recognize that I had to choose either classical or jazz, I looked at my options, and kind of classical kind of seemed to be the clear winner. Between the two. I love a great jazz guitarist, but it was kind of the classical angle of playing that spoke to me more so than the jazz angle of things.
Well, do you think, Chris, that your degree in classical guitar has made you a better better guitar player overall?
I think it has. It gave me technique. It gave me hand position. It gave me facility. It gave me a lot of musical theory that allows me to learn songs faster. When you go to the internet and get tabs for songs, I oftentimes find myself scratching my head going, who fingered this? Why in the world are they playing it like that? So, just because they tell you it needs to be, third string, seventh fret or whatever like that, and say, okay, I can play that note somewhere else and actually play it a lot better here because I know what the notes are and where else they are on the guitar and that kind of thing. But purely as a vehicle for becoming, like, if your goal is simply to become a better rock player, there are faster and easier ways of doing it than studying classical guitar. Classical guitar has made me a more diverse player, a more efficient player, and a better player. But it was also a long and expensive process. It requires you to master one more thing. If I only had to master one thing, So I recommend it for anybody who's looking at it for the right reasons. But I would also say don't be fooled that getting a degree in classical guitar is going to make you a rock star, 'cause it's not.
Well said. Well said, Chris. Before I jump over to the question sheet, um, I do have a question
Yeah.
regarding No Excuses.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite Alice in Chains song to play and why?
Probably the one you played there at the top of the show. I love the riff. I just love the sound of it. I love the riff. The solo is super fun to play. It's a short song. It's definitely one of their heavier songs. It's not one of their most popular songs.
It is with me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I just love it. That's why. Yep, just
What?
that dirty drop D sludgy kind of riff. With this, with the solo that's fun as anything to play. What's not to love?
I love it. That's cool. Well, there's more.
Yeah, pinch harmonics and whammy bars and feedback and
Absolutely, Chris. Absolutely. Can I? Would it be okay with you if I played that clip again? We have more people watching.
yeah, by all means.
Well, folks, check this out. I played this at the top of the show, and I'm gonna play it again. And this video is a live performance of No Excuses, Alice in Chains tribute band out of Canada, who my guest Chris plays guitar. You might check this out and
Fire away.
tell me.
Let's do it.
I want to see some comments in the comment box, dreamers, of how this video makes you feel, because I know how it makes me feel. It makes me feel great, and it makes my hair stand on the tip of my arms. My hair stands straight up last night, folks. Check this out.
Oh,
Good times.
I love watching that. I love watching that. It's, oh my gosh. Let's see what the chat room's got to say about that. Oh, I can't even keep my hands still. That is not awesome. What do
Thank
we
you.
got? What do we got?
One thing I could add to that is that at that time we were talking about modeling. My move to the head rush has just been within the last year-ish. That particular show that we did was before I went to the head rush. At that time, and the reason I mention this is it just kind of brings to light how far modeling has come, and kind of the different platforms. At that time, I was using an iPad. I had iRig guitar interface, so I connected that to my iPad, and I was using Bias Effects and Bias Amp. So it was amp modeling for iOS. And I was using that, and then I had a Bluetooth controller that sat on the floor that allowed me to change patches
Oh
from
wow,
one to the other.
that's
And
cool.
when we recorded our demo as well, which is also on our website, um, and it was the Bias Effects and Bias Amp that I used, and it's still really remarkably close. But I moved to the Head Rush because it's even better than that. And it's even more versatile than that. And as far as roadworthiness, it's also more roadworthy than having to rely on an iPad that could fall off or whatever.
Well, over in uh, oh, I just had a thought come in my head. You were talking about the iRig
Yes.
and going into your iPad
Yeah.
and positive grid.
Yes.
I have a positive grid Spark on the way.
Oh, cool.
I'm
They look
really
neat.
I like those amps, and I had the opportunity to acquire one, and it's being processed right now, and I can't wait to get it. I'm really looking forward. I'm really looking forward to getting it. Positive Grid is a real solid company, and I'm really looking forward to getting my Spark amp. You brought that came to mind because you mentioned Bias Amp and Bias Effects.
Yeah. So yeah, their modeling is really very, very good.
And well, I also have Bias Effects 2 Pro in
Hmm.
my DAW.
Yep.
Um, basically, so I could just get the Friedman plugin,
All right.
but I'm a pretty big advocate for Friedman amps. I don't have any, but I do have a few Friedman pedals that I'm very proud of. And so over here in the chat, yeah, Karen says awesome. Karen's also says such a great driving beat. I agree. I agree. Um, getting back to note, let's see here. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Getting back to no excuses. What do you hope to see? It's obvious that No Excuses has got it. No Excuses has had can deliver that solid um, vibe, that solid, powerful vibe that um, Alice in Chains that we've all learned to know and love about Alice in Chains. And what would you like to see happen in the in the near future or the future for No Excuses, Chris?
Question. I think the simplest answer and the shortest answer is more opportunities to play. One thing that's been kind of surprising for me, Alice in Chains is, easily in the top 3, grunge bands as far as popularity. Nirvana's probably number 1. Maybe Alice in Chains is number 2. Maybe Pearl Jam or Soundgarden is, whatever. I figured that Alice in Chains would be a fairly easy sell as far as getting shows and things like that. And I found that to be not nearly as much the case as that I had expected. We have to work fairly hard to sell ourselves to get shows so that we can sell ourselves to audiences. I mean, if we can get shows, we can get people in front of us. We invariably, get the feedback of like, wow, I can't believe how much you guys actually sound like Alice in Chains. You guys are excellent or whatever like that. And, all that positive feedback is, certainly appreciated and, and enjoyed. And, we get some good constructive criticism along the way as well, which is cool. But I would say more opportunities to play so that we can get in front of more people and kind of continue to establish ourselves. We do really well in Toronto, kind of thing. And then, absolutely, we need more live venues again. But no kidding. We just had actually a major live venue here in Hamilton just announced that they've been sold just as of last night. Kind of a blow, but we need more live venues for sure. But, trying to expand our range of territory. Toronto is about an hour away from us. We love playing Toronto. But, we'd like to get more shows in the Hamilton area where we're from. We'd like to get more shows in the Niagara area and then out towards, Kitchener, London, Guelph, around there. We can just kind of establish a circle of like, an hour or so radius where if we play in this, we play Toronto this month and we play in these other markets for the next few months, then we're not kind of overstaying our welcome. We'll come back to Toronto in 6 months kind of thing. That'd be a nice place to be.
So, well, let me be the first to say this to you, Chris. No Excuses is welcome on my show any time.
Awesome. Thank you.
I want to promote you guys and I want to help you guys get out there if I can. And I'm just simply I'm a guitar player, songwriter, music fan first and foremost, And No Excuses is definitely welcome on my show anytime, Chris.
Thanks, Will. Appreciate it.
So what is your, what would you feel free, well, tell me all about the beginning stages of your guitar playing, learning guitar, and tell me about the beginning stages of Chris. When you first started, what got you interested in guitar?
So I'm going to approach that with kind of a first. What first got me interested in music was there was always music around the house. My mom plays a little bit of piano, but we never actually had a piano in the house. So it's not like instruments were around, but there was always music around. And as a young kid, I picked up on a lot of that. I loved Elvis Presley. Remember, this little red record player that I had, and spinning Elvis records end after end and stuff by the Animals and things like that. And I just kind of got into just loving music at that point. But really showed no signs that I had any kind of an aptitude. And then I had a cousin that lived with us for a little while, and typical, I never had any older siblings. We always look up to our older siblings, right? So
Yeah.
he was an older cousin. He lived with us, so I looked up to him, and he played guitar, and I thought that was the coolest thing. So and then he could play some songs that I recognized and whatnot, and I thought I want to do that. I want to do that, and I bugged my family for probably a couple of years, anyways, and finally got a guitar, and I played for a couple of years, and I enjoyed it. I took private lessons and things like that, and then when we moved, we lived in the small town, Fergus. We moved to Hamilton. I'd been separated then from my instructor, and I didn't really play much throughout grade 9. And, it was in grade, and actually it was funny, for high school you need an arts credit to graduate. And I saw music on the option sheet and went, nah. And I actually wound up taking industrial arts as my arts credit for grade 9. And the high school I went to was actually really kind of funny how it played out. It's Cathedral High School in Hamilton. At the time, it was Cathedral Boys and Cathedral Girls. So it was partway through grade 9, I found out, oh, they have a guitar class. Well, that kind of changes everything. I didn't know they had a guitar class, or else I would have taken music. And I looked at the course offering, and it's like, I already all know most of this stuff. So like, this is going to be like a bird course for me. And as an added bonus, I mean, you might as you couldn't put a better bow on it. It was at the girls' school. So at the end of grade 9, filling out option sheets, guitar it was. So I took this guitar course thinking, A, it's at the girls' school, and B, it's going to be a bird course. So I got to take that. And met some people there. My high school music teacher, as I say, was a huge influence on me personally and musically. I met some people who already could play some songs off the radio because they were in the guitar class, and I remember learning "Rock You Like a Hurricane" by the Scorpions. And this guy sitting beside me playing this, and I'm like, holy crap, you got to show me that. And at that point, I was kind of hooked.
Well, over here in the chat room, Deanna also says, how much room is there for the different learning styles in music?
I would say lots, because music, especially instrumental music, and well, actually, you know what? I think I might take that qualifier off the table, because you rely a lot on physical feedback when you're singing as well. But, when we talk about learning styles, we're talking about kinesthetic learners, people who learn things by doing. We're talking about like auditory learners, visual learners, things like that. Music really pulls all of those things in together. You really have to engage all of those things to learn music. So, and I think maybe I don't have any scientific data to base this on, but it may be why music, success in music and instruction in music does tend to have spin-off effects, and there is scientific data for that, for success in other academic areas, somewhat in language, but particularly in things like math and computers. There is scientific data to back that up for sure. But if you're engaging all of those processes, all of those different, so-called, learning styles at once, when you learn music, then it probably does. That's probably why there is that spin-off effect, because you're engaging all of those things. And just looking at one other point there about the club in Hamilton that was announced. It was closing.
Yes.
The video that you played is actually from that club that just announced that they were closing. Ironically.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Go figure.
People need to stop closing. I mean, yes, I know we're going through a hard time and the whole world's in a complete state of bewilderment, it appears, and gotta hold the faith, people.
Yeah.
Gotta keep the faith. Like Bon Jovi said, like John Bon Jovi wrote, keep the faith, Gotta can't give up. Gotta hold on to the faith. Gotta keep the faith. Gotta keep believing in yourselves. Gotta keep believing in what you're doing. Gotta keep believing in what you would like to do. You gotta, gotta keep the faith.
That's all very true. To tie it to this one particular club, though, the guy Lou is one of the owners of this club. It's called This Ain't Hollywood, and they've established themselves. They said 11 years ago. It feels like longer. It feels like one of those clubs that's always been there. Lou treated us really well. When with the original band, he runs a radio show on the Mohawk College radio station, and he was really good to us through there. He's been good to us through his club. When you talk about the music industry, there are all types. It's a numbers game. There are some scammers and shysters, and there are some just good people who want to do the right thing because they love it and they're good at it and whatnot. Lou is one of those good people. I'm sure he'll be back in some way. What's happening with clubs in Hamilton, and I'm sure across North America, is you get this place, it's somebody will buy up the property, and I know this is what happened for this St. Hollywood. You buy up a property because it's cheap and it's already a bar. And we can do something with it, right? And you have this vision, so you build it over time, and then the area that this particular club is in, like many other clubs, you can even go back to CBGB's in New York, same thing, right? It builds up a reputation. The neighborhood itself starts to come up because artists move into the area. The area gets gentrified, and now that property that you bought, for kind of a fire sale price, is now has had their property value go up enormously. So somebody else will offer the owner, a price that kind of they can't refuse. And, now that club becomes maybe condos, maybe maybe an upscale restaurant or whatever like that. But there's always going to be those places. Some other place will come along that somebody else will buy for a song, hopefully, and will hopefully have the vision, to support live music as well. I mean, another dynamic that is also really hard, bars and restaurants have a really tough profit margin. I talk about kind of, the music industry and making it as a musician is hard. The food service industry and bars and things like that is also super difficult.
Mhm.
Balancing, paying bands a respectable amount. Nobody wants to be that band that gets offered $25 to play a show with 14 other bands. Nobody wants to do that, at least not unless it's your first gig. Um, so if you're going to offer your bands a fair price to pay them, and you're going to offer your staff, a fair price to pay them, balancing that with how many people are coming through the door and cover charges, um, other administrative fees, your SOCAN license, SOCAN is Canada's performing rights organization, all those things. It's a tough business as well. There are a lot of clubs that used to be rock clubs that somebody said, oh, I can make more money on it as a dance club. But then those dance clubs, you become flavor of the week, and then 6 months later you're closing because there's another place down the street that's the next big thing. The bar and restaurant industry is a really tough go as well. But hopefully somebody with a vision will come in and buy a property somewhere and make a commitment to do it right. Maybe that person will be Lou himself again. I don't know.
Very interesting that you mentioned the food and bar industry. Because right now, being in the food industry, unless you're offering like um, takeout or carry out type of services, it's not a very good industry to be in.
Not at
And
the moment, no. But even at the
I,
best of times, it's a tough industry.
and I can tell you by experience, because at one time I spent about 3 years working in the kitchen. And now, devastating, just devastating stuff has happened and is happening. And it's very tough.
It is. As I say, even at the best of times, though, I think that's a tough industry to compete
It
in.
is. It is. So, how do you,
So in a lot of ways, it's probably a lot like music. I mean, if you open up a restaurant, yeah, you got to be prepared to put the hours in, to get it right. You've got to be prepared to, you know, take a lot of flack for stuff, work through the things that you'd probably rather not work through. I mean, I love working in music as well, but there's the work end of it as well, more than just a play end. Um, you know, hopefully if you're opening up a restaurant, you're doing it because you love it, I think there's a lot of comparisons to make between, the restaurant industry and the music industry. Did I lose you? I think I might have lost him.
I'm
You're back.
sorry, Chris.
Yeah. Hey,
I'm sorry we ran into technical difficulties.
all good. Yep.
But we're back. So can you what's your business outlook, Chris, on for people such as myself and others that are trying to get established online and have like a newly opened merchandise shop, which, by the way, if anybody's interested in checking out the Guitar Streaming 352 merchandise shop, the link's down the description box below. I'm going to be adding new products every week.
Cool.
And it's all a work in process. It's all a work in progress. And I see that it's going to really take more hard work than I realized to really make it push this out. I'm committed to it because I want to give the best possible inspirational designs to everybody that I could possibly muster up. So, with that being said, what is your advice for, especially with the way things are now economically, what is your advice for anybody trying to start their own online business?
Ooh, that may be a bit out of my depth, quite honestly. Sales is something that is also can be. I mean, I've not really sold much online myself, but we are kind of in a time that's kind of curious because people are reluctant to buy anything that they can get for free. So trying to sell music is, almost impossible. Selling objects, yeah, I don't know. I think that's a question that's kind of out of my depth.
Music related.
Oh, I think we lost him again.
I'm back.
Yeah, perfect.
Sorry about that, Chris.
It's all good. Just took an opportunity to answer a question.
That's awesome. I would like to thank everybody for being here today and for sticking with Chris and I. And everybody is welcome. If you like my content, you can find Guitar Streaming 352 on support is.
I think we're about to lose you again, I think.
And yeah, and say,
I think we're losing you again, Will.
well, I'm here and thank you, Chris, for coming on and keep doing what you're doing.
I think we're losing you again, Will. Just before you drop out there, it always sounds like, the audio cuts out, and here he goes again. Yeah. I had a feeling that was going to happen.